It's great to have you back here at the Ohio Democratic Party headquarters here in Columbus. On behalf of the men and women here at the Ohio Democratic Party, the employees, the activists, the volunteers, I want to say thank you for taking the time and welcome you to this event. We're happy to have you here. We look forward to having you back tomorrow. All right. And the day after. And the day after that. Right through the election. Before I introduce our great governor, I want to just take a moment and ask all of you to continue to join us in our fight for this election. We have so many great candidates, many of them here today, many of them out talking to voters spread across our state. We have, as all of you come to know, the strongest state party in the nation, but we cannot win without all of you. We know that with great candidates and a great party, we're halfway there. It takes great activists, great volunteers, great enthusiasts like all of you to get this job done and continue to build our state for the future. If you were to talk to our staff today and ask them how you could get involved, they would tell you, just visit us at ohiodems.org, where you'll be able to sign up and volunteer. You'll be able to knock doors with all of us, make a few phone calls as well, talking to your friends and neighbors from Pomeroy to Port Clinton, from Zanesville to Toledo. You can become a neighborhood leader, joining our effort to fight for Ohio's families and Ohio's future. By your presence, you know this. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. In just over 3 months, they'll be voting here in the state of Ohio. And they know, and we know, we're on the right track with our great governor. At this time, please welcome the great governor of the state of Ohio.
For being here this morning. I have some things I want to share with you over the next few minutes. I'll begin by telling you a story about Jim Marshall. It was in the 1950s. Ohio State defensive end Jim Marshall was one of the most dominant players in football. Jim Marshall accomplished a lot in the game, but he's remembered for one play in particular. He was playing professional football for the Minnesota Vikings at this point, and as he and several of his teammates were tackling a receiver, the ball came loose. The football was lying there on the field, so Jim Marshall picked it up and started running. He felt himself getting faster. He saw a clear path to the end zone, and he just kept right on running. He peeked behind him, and all he saw were his own teammates. They were waving their arms, and they were shouting. He knew this was his moment, the greatest play of his career. He burst untouched into the end zone. He was so excited that he threw the ball into the stands in celebration. But as he rose to his feet, he started to wonder why the fans were cheering so loudly. This was an away game, after all. He wondered why his teammates hadn't run over to congratulate him. Jim Marshall started questioning himself. Was this some kind of dream? He had just picked up the ball and run 66 yards into the end zone, hadn't he? Well, he had, of course. But then he realized one critical fact. He had run 66 yards into the wrong end zone. He had just scored, but for the other team. When he made it off the field, his coaches didn't yell or scream at him, but one of them said something that Jim Marshall would never forget. He said, "Son, it doesn't matter how fast you can run if you're going in the wrong direction." And that, quite frankly, is what this election is really all about. This isn't about nuances and splitting hairs. We flat out disagree. In physics, the third law of motion is that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And this is a third law of motion election. Because for every issue that matters, Congressman John Kasich and I have opposite reactions. For 4 years, we've invested in our people. For 4 years, we fought to create jobs that can't be outsourced. And for 4 years, we have moved Ohio forward, building a solid foundation that will support our great middle class. And now, Congressman Kasich says he wants to throw all that away. If he wins, he says, Ohioans are, and I quote, going to have to wear a seatbelt because the changes are going to be enormous. But just like Jim Marshall, it doesn't matter how fast he can move because he wants to take us in the wrong direction. Four years ago, I saw that Ohio's research strengths, our manufacturing base, our location, and infrastructure could make Ohio a leading producer of advanced energy. But we needed policies that were strong as our potential. And so we made energy a core component of a bipartisan jobs bill that was one of the first in the nation to take on this international economic downturn. We made investments in companies working in wind, in solar, even a company that can turn heaping piles of manure into energy. You know, sometimes I wonder if they may be willing to bring their equipment over to the State House. Yeah, a little levity. The energy reform bill that I proposed gave Ohio one of the nation's most aggressive renewable energy policies and has pushed our utilities to innovate. And while other states that failed to act saw electricity rates jump 70%, Ohio's electricity rates are 10% below the national average. And just last month, I signed a bill that I had proposed earlier in the year that eliminates a tax on the generation of advanced energy to help spur new wind, solar, and other projects. Now, the point of energy policy isn't to create policies, but is to create energy and jobs. And we have. In renewable and advanced energy manufacturing projects, Ohio now ranks first among the 50 states. The Council of State Governments found that more green jobs were created in Ohio last year than in any other state. Energy was just one commitment we made to building jobs in Ohio that can't be outsourced. We invested in public works, in logistics and distribution, and we saw voters overwhelmingly support a bipartisan effort to renew the Ohio Third Frontier. In Indiana, they cut $300 million out of their school budget. In Hawaii, they cut Fridays out of their school calendar. And in Utah,